Good evening to Class 3, 4 and 5. Welcome to this evening's episode of Stories from the Shed, when Danny and his dad go into the wood. Let's say hello to Rebel. Hi Rebel. There's Pesco. And we've got Mr. Shoutout. A big shout out this evening for Nancy. Nancy in year 3. Hi Nancy. Okay, let's get on with the story. So they're in the wood. My father was very tense. He was picking his feet up high and putting them down gently on the brown leaves. He kept his head moving all the time, the eyes sweeping slowly from side to side, searching for danger. I tried doing the same, but soon I began to see a keeper behind every tree, so I gave it up. We went on like this for maybe 4 or 5 minutes, going slowly deeper and deeper into the wood. Then a large patch of sky appeared ahead of us in the roof of the forest, and I knew that this must be the clearing. My father had told me that the clearing was the place where the young birds were introduced into the wood in early July, where they were fed and watered and guarded by the keepers, and where many of them stayed from force of habit until the shooting began. There's always plenty of pheasants in the clearing, my father had said. And keepers, Dad? Yes, but there's thick bushes all around, and that helps. The clearing was about 100 yards ahead of us. We stopped behind a big tree while my father let his eyes travel very slowly all around. He was checking each little shadow and every part of the wood within sight. We're going to have to crawl the next bit, he whispered, letting go of my hand. Keep close behind me all the time, Danny, and do exactly as I do. If you see me lie flat on my face, you do the same, right? Right, okay, Dad, I whispered back. Off we go then. This is it. My father got down on his hands and knees and started crawling. I followed. He moved surprisingly fast on all fours, and I had quite a job to keep up with him. Every few seconds he would glance back at me to see if I was all right, and each time he did so, I gave him a nod and a smile. We crawled on, and then at last we were kneeling safely behind a big clump of bushes right on the edge of the clearing. My father was nudging me with his elbow and pointing through the branches at the pheasants. The place was absolutely stiff with them. There must have been at least 200 huge birds strutting around amongst the tree stumps. You see what I mean? He whispered. Oh, let's get rid of that. There they are. It was a fantastic sight, a poacher's dream come true, and how close they were. Some of them were not 10 places from where we knelt. The hens were plump and creamy brown. They were so fat their breast feathers almost brushed the ground as they walked. The cocks were slim and elegant, with long tails and brilliant red patches round the eyes like scarlet spectacles. I glanced at my father. His face was transfixed with ecstasy. The mouth was slightly open, and the eyes were sparkling bright as they stared at the pheasants. Now, children, let me show you the difference. Now, Pesco over here, he's a cock pheasant. He's a male pheasant, a man pheasant, a boy pheasant. And you can tell that because he has the red ring around his eye. Now, if I put one of my feathers from here, that, I'm pretty much certain, that is a cock pheasant's tail. Because usually the hen pheasant, she's a bit more paler. Maybe a bit more like that, but she's kind of more creamy. And the cock pheasant is has much stronger colouring. I suppose that's the best way to say it. Let's get back to the pheasants. There's a keeper, he said softly. I froze. I didn't even dare to look. Over there, my father whispered. I mustn't move, I told myself, not even my head. Look carefully, my father whispered, over the other side by that big tree. Slowly I swiveled my eyeballs in the direction he indicated. Then I saw him. "Dad," I whispered. "Don't move now, Danny. Stay well down." "Yes, but Dad..." "It's all right. He can't see us." There he is, standing by the tree. We crouched close to the ground, watching the keeper. He was a smallish man, with a cap on his head and a big double-barrelled shotgun under his arm. He never moved. He was like a little post just standing there. "Should we go?" I whispered. The keeper's face was shadowed by the peak of his cap, but it seemed to me he was looking straight at us. "Should we go, Dad? Should we go?" "Shh," my father said. Slowly, never taking his eyes from the keeper, he reached into his pocket and brought out a single raisin. He placed it in the palm of his right hand, and then quickly, with a little flick of the wrist, he threw the raisin high into the air. I watched it as it went sailing over the bushes, and I saw it land within a yard of 2 hen birds standing beside an old tree stump. Both birds turned their heads sharply at the drop of the raisin. Then one of them hopped over and made a quick peck at the ground, and that must have been it. I looked at the keeper. He hadn't moved. I could feel a trickle of cold sweat running down one side of my forehead and across my cheek. I didn't dare lift a hand to wipe it away. My father threw a second raisin into the clearing, then a third, and a fourth, and a fifth. It takes guts to do that, I thought, terrific guts. If I'd been alone, I would never have stayed there for 1 second, but my father was in a sort of poacher's trance. For him, this was it. This was the moment of danger, the biggest thrill of it all. He kept on throwing the raisins into the clearing, swiftly, silently, one at a time. Flick went his wrist, and up went the raisin high over the bushes to land amongst the pheasants. Then all at once, I saw the keeper turn away his head to inspect the wood behind him. My father saw it too. Quick as a flash, he pulled the bag of raisins out of his pocket and tipped the whole lot into the palm of his right hand. "Dad," I whispered, "don't!" But with a great sweep of the arm, he flung the entire handful way over the bushes into the clearing. They fell with a soft little patter, like raindrops on dry leaves, and every single pheasant in the place must have heard them fall. There was a flurry of wings and a rush to find the treasure. The keeper's head flicked round as though there was a spring inside his neck. The birds were all pecking away madly at the raisins. The keeper took 2 quick paces forward, and for a moment I thought he was going in to investigate. But then he stopped, and his face came up, and his eyes began travelling slowly round the edge of the clearing. The keeper's looking for something suspicious, but they're lying there. "Lie down flat," my father whispered. "Stay there. Don't move an inch." I flattened my body against the ground and pressed one side of my face into the brown leaves. The soil below the leaves had a queer pungent smell like beer. Out of one eye, I saw my father raise his head just a tiny bit to watch the keeper. He kept watching them. "Don't you just love this?" he said. I didn't dare answer him. We lay there for what seemed like 100 years. Will the keeper find them? Will the keeper spot them? Find out tomorrow.